Okay, now another area, or I don't know what to call it, subsector of finance, um, is basically the government and support projects that are out there. There are projects that help ethnic minorities, projects that help women in business, projects that help young people in specific, like the Prince's Trust. It's like 18 to 30. If you're 18 to 30, they'll focus on funding your projects, and a range of different kind of niche government, kind of tech focused or fabric focused or media and performance focused bits of funding out there that are possible. And typically they are just simply debt finance, but they've just got it packaged where they're looking for a specific niche type of end receiver for the funding itself. And along with that, they typically offer mentoring, support building your business plan, understanding business accounts and registration and all of that kind of stuff, and support you in those areas, because not everybody's just born, well, nobody's born understanding how to build a company and all the paperwork that goes behind it. Not that there's that much, but it kind of needs understanding whether you're going to be a sole trader, whether you're going to be a limited company, whether you're an unlimited company, whether you're limited by stocks and shares and guarantees and a range of just different structures, which some you're eligible for straight away and some you're not. It's just knowing what is what and why you would register your company a certain way, or in a certain country, or for the Americans in a certain state like Delaware is preferable to register a company in, and a few other states are really preferable because of tax structures and legislation and a range of different things. But yeah, there are quite focused bits of funding out there. Another bit of funding that I've come across that I really dislike, I think it's quite, I don't know, it's quite stupid. Maybe there's reason for it. If somebody out there knows where the value is in it, please let me know. I've not seen the value in it. And it's called match funding, where a funding organization will match whatever you've raised. The reason I think it's stupid, because if I'm going to go through the whole process and the effort and energy of raising 25 grand for you to match my 25 grand and give it to me, why don't I just raise the 50 grand myself? Because the reality of fundraising is the numbers are quite academic. What matters most is, are your numbers right? Are your projections right? Is your business structure and idea sound? Will it make the money back? And can you afford the repayments? Those matter way more than whether this organization is going to match this or whatever. And it just feels like the biggest waste of time ever. Anytime I've been seeking finance and I see match finance, I write it off immediately, because typically it's, I don't know what it is. It's strange organizations that are trying to get into the funding game but need some sort of other security. I don't know. I don't know why they exist. Anyway, another way of raising capital is through something called bonds, where it's kind of like, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, so I'm trying to stay away from jargon. I don't really like jargon very much. It's an annoying barrier which doesn't help the average person, to be honest. And I'm just trying to help the average Joe be able to get up one day and actually have the right conversations to know exactly what type of finance they want, and then how to structure their deal so they get the finance. So another way is bonds, where it's kind of like debt finance, where you're issued a bond. So you'd actually get a bond document, and it's got terms and conditions wrapped around it. But essentially, it's this document that says you promise to pay, if we're going to lend you £1 million, you promise to pay £1 million and 100,000 on top of it, or whatever the interest rate is, and that payment has to happen exactly 12 months from now, or exactly 18 months from now, or whatever. So you structure the terms, and you build the bond, and it's, like I said, it's not a very common one. It's not all too known about, and I don't know how many startups have actually used the bond. Typically, for bonds, you're expected to have some sort of track record, so you've had accounting for the last couple of years. Having your accounts audited by a reputable accounting firm is so so important. So important, because it shows that you're not just cooking the books and trying to pass it off. It shows that an external professional numbers person has gone over it, and they're ready to put their company stamp to say, we've checked this through and through, and they're sound, and we think this is good. If you get something like a proper audit, and actually pay for an audit, it might cost you 10, 20, 30 grand, depends on size of your project, size of your business, and size of the accounting firm that you're going to get this done through. You can get this done by a smaller, not a top 10 firm, where it'll cost you significantly less, maybe $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever. Just depends on how complex your business is and how much work goes in and the size of the firm. I typically like to go for the bigger, more reputable firms, because when a lending institution is looking at it and they see PwC, they see Deloitte, they see who else? Grant Thornton, they see Haynes Watts. They're like, okay, I know these firms. I don't need to check their credibility. I don't need to wonder who they are. I know it's a quality accountant that's gone over these numbers properly. Joe Blogg's accounting firm from down the road, they can have come out of KPMG or whatever, or EY, and be working for this other firm and deliver just as good a service, but you just don't have the credibility and the track record of, one of the Big 10 names. Another avenue is, well, it's not quite an avenue, but it's another way that people get funded, through angel investors. Now, angel investors don't have any one typical, necessarily standard structure in how they operate. Some will say they want equity. Well, most will say they want equity. Some will combine equity and debt. Some will give you a structure where it's equity, but then you can buy back some of the equity if you hit certain targets. And they're just more happy to take bigger risks on startups that haven't proven their track record. Track record is everything, by the way. The quicker you can build it, if your actual work history, let's say you are an accountant by trade and you've worked for 5-10 years, I'm just picking a random thing, and you want to set up your own accounting firm to look after a certain type of clientele in a certain kind of area, and you want finance, startup finance to do that, your track record, if you've worked with PwC or Deloitte for however many years and shown that your track record is solid in this particular sector, and you've been head of a department and head of growth and head of sales and head of, business development, then they can see that you've got the right track record to start your own company and do, really good things. If you worked at Burger King for 10 years and all of a sudden you want to start a cryptocurrency trading platform without the necessary, track record and background experience, you might find it a bit more difficult. And this is where you'd bring in team members that have that to fill in the gap for you, and yada, yada, yada. Also, really, really strong way to enter a market is to come in as a joint venture partnership. That gives you, whoever you're joining the venture to or with, all of their track record becomes yours. So if I decided that I want to start a chain of dentists tomorrow, I don't have a dentistry degree. I don't have a medical degree. I don't have anything. I don't have a science degree, nothing. But if I find 2 other dentists who have been doing this with a combined experience of 70 years, and I'm going to be looking after marketing, branding, and all of that structure, but I'm using their track record as a launch pad, I'm quite a promising bet for an investor. That's how you structure it. So I hope that helps and gives you a picture of some of the things that are out there. As I come across mechanisms that startups can use, I will share them with you. There is also, it just came back to mind, what people call venture capitalists, what's more commonly called private equity nowadays. Now, these are investors who are less passionate about the business side, but are very passionate about investing in things that are going to give them promising returns. Now, typically, the VCs or private equity firms and individuals that I've come across, some of them are actually angel investors who just do private equity deals. They typically like to take majority shareholding straight away. So there'll be 51% of your company, 60, 75. I've been offered an angel investor actually offered to take 95% of my company, and if I deliver in the first year, then they don't kick me out of my own company. Can you imagine? So there are some sharks out there, and everything happens with conversation. So you don't find out until you ask the question and you get out there and you can say yes or no. I walked away from those deals. It's fine. You just say, you know, thank you for your time. It doesn't seem like the structure that I'm going to go for at the moment. But I really appreciate your time. Keep it moving. Go on, out of there. And that's how you got to do it. All right? Cool.